Much obliged. Now, when we left off, Mr. Yearwood, you told us that Mr. Mingo had attempted to make a declaration, and this was around 1:20 p.m. I want to take you to 2:30 p.m. of that very day. Did you see Mr. Mingo again?
Yes, he was on the stairs leading upstairs, so one of the higher floors, and he had a document in his hand, and I think he was attempting to make a declaration again.
Okay. How far away from you were you at the time?
It's about one floor height, so I would say about 12, maybe 15 feet.
And were you able to hear what he was saying?
I heard what he started out saying, but not what he completed. He started out saying that he was going to make the declaration.
No, exactly what were his words?
Pardon?
What were the words he used? Do you recall?
I don't recall the exact words, but I know it was that he was attempting to make that he was saying that he was going to make the declaration for Region 4.
And at about 4 o'clock that evening, did you receive any information or instruction from any GCOM member of staff? Well, perhaps I should ask you this. At about 4 o'clock that evening, were you still at Ashman's building?
Yes, we were still at Ashwin's building.
Oh.
Before we go to 4, we were at 2:30 when you heard Mr. Mingo say he was going to make a declaration.
Yes, sir.
Well, did he make the declaration?
As far as I know, I don't know where he made the declaration, but when he says that he was going to, myself and a few, well, not a few, but all of the party agents that were there started to object to it. A lot of persons started to shout no, 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 no. So the volume was as such that I couldn't hear what he was saying after that. What I did see was that after a few moments, he took out a pen and he signed the document that he was holding in his hand. Whatever that document was, I have no idea.
Around 4 o'clock.
Yes, but before we get back to 4 o'clock, between 1:20 p.m. and 2:30 p.m., had any verification of statements of polls continued?
There was no verification done since Mr. Levan had finished the night before.
So you were in the building, you were still in Ashman's building at 4 p.m. and did a GCOM member of staff speak to you and other persons there?
Yes, the party agents were in the tabulation room, and a member of the GCOM staff, I don't know his name, came in and said that we had to vacate the building because they were going to the next stage of whatever the process was. He never explained what that next stage was.
Did anybody ask what that next stage was?
Yes, but we received no answer.
Did you ask?
I didn't ask, no.
Okay. Can you now recall who asked?
No, I can't.
And did you ever discover the name of that member of staff?
No. The member of the GCOM staff, no. I never found out his name.
Well, what was your response to the request to vacate the building?
Disappointment, anger, particularly anger.
Well, more than that, did you vacate the building?
No, I didn't.
You did.
Because I was angry because by now the formation of the thoughts that something wrong was definitely happening.
Okay. So you remained in the building, and later that afternoon, did you observe anything?
Yes, a while after I observed medical personnel rush into the building.
Okay. And
And-
did they go to any particular floor?
They went to the very top floor.
Would that be the third floor?
Yes, it was.
Were you able to see from where you were what was happening upstairs?
Yes, I was. I had, on seeing the medical personnel come in, I had moved up on the steps leading up to the stairs, up further up, and I was in a position to see what was going on at the top there, yes.
Yes. And very briefly, can you tell us what you saw?
The medical personnel rushed right up to the top floor. They went to a door and they tried to get into the door, but they were prevented by the police. They were prevented from entering the room by the police who were guarding the entrance to that door.
Do you know
So-
what was in that room or who was in that room?
I have no idea who was in that room.
How did you know they were medical personnel?
They were dressed in emergency medical outfits. And they were also carrying a stretcher.
And you say you saw police officers guarding that door. How did you know they were police officers?
They were uniformed, in uniform.
Well, upon being prevented from accessing the door or going through the door, what did the medical personnel do?
Well, after arguing and trying to get to convince the police that they were there
Well,
at the
pause. Were you able to hear what was being said from where you were?
No, I wasn't able to hear,
Okay.
but
Well,
I could
let's-
see from the gesticulations.
Right. So,
That
so they were not able to get through the door.
No, the police refused them entry.
Did they then leave?
Shortly after, yes, they left.
Do you know a man called Narain? His surname is Narain.
Yes, I know Mr. Narain.
Did you see him at the building later that day?
Shortly after the medical personnel, yes.
Had you known him before?
Yes, I had known him from previously.
When you saw Mr. Narain, where were you?
I was on the second floor of the building at that time.
And when you saw Mr. Narain, where was he?
He had gone up to the very same door that the medical personnel had been refused entry to, and he was also refused entry into that.
And are you able to say who refused him entry?
The police personnel on duty at the door.
How do you know that?
Through the gesticulations again.
Could you hear what was being said between Mr. Narain and the police officers by that door?
No, I couldn't hear what they said.
Did you remain on the second floor, or did you go up or down afterwards?
I never went past the second floor. I remained on that for a while.
At about 6:30 p.m., did you leave Ashman's building?
Yes, I left Ashman's at around 6:30. As other ANUG party agents came in to relieve me from my position in there.
Could I ask you, what led you to the conclusion that Mr. Narain was trying to get into this particular room? He put his hand on the lock?
After Mr. Narain was denied entry,
No,
No, he
you
saw
heard
me.
You heard somebody denying him entry?
No, I saw the gesticulations of the police suggesting to him that he couldn't go in.
What did they held
They,
there,
they just prevented him from going in.
pushing him back?
Yes, kind of, and blocking the door entry. He subsequently saw me and came to me because we are friends.
No, let's go.
Okay.
Let's go slowly.
Okay.
Mr. Narayan approached the door.
Yes.
A policeman stood in front of him, in front of the door.
Yes, sir.
Well, that is clearer.
Okay. Okay.
It's much clearer than your deductions from gesticulation. You agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Good.
I agree.
Thank you.
You went on to say that subsequently Mr. Narayan spoke to you?
Yes. Mr. Narayan and I have been friends before that. So,
He spoke to you.
okay. So he came over to me and he spoke to me and he told me that they had refused him entry into the room. And that she had called, the chairman of GCOM had called him requesting assistance because she was not feeling well. And that when he spoke to the police on duty at the door, they refused him entry to go into the room.
Do you know whether Mr. Narayan was a relative of the chairman?
I don't know whether they're related. He just said that they were good friends and that she had called for his assistance previously on other occasions.
Thank you.
By chance, do you know what Mr. Narayan does for a living?
Yes, I do.
What does he do?
At that time, he was an inspector of the police, Guyana Police Force.
Now, shall we go back to when you were leaving the compound upon being relieved? Did you observe anything as you were leaving the compound?
Yes, as I was outside of the Ashman's building, leaving the premises, I passed a 30-seater bus disembarking police officers in riot squad with riot shields, and they were entering the building.
Was this a marked police bus?
Yes, it was.
And were the police officers in uniform?
Yes, they were.
Did you know any of the officers?
No, I don't know who they were.
Now let me take you to the 12th of March 2020. Do you recall that day?
Yes.
And on this day, you knew that an order had been made by the Chief Justice for the verification process in Region 4 to restart or to continue, correct?
Correct.
So, having that information in hand, did you go anywhere?
Yes, I returned to the Ashman's building on the morning around 9 a.m.
And when you got there, were there any other party agents there?
Yes, a few other party agents were there as well. They were from the PPP, from LJP. Some local observers were there as well too.
And what does LJP stand for?
Liberty and Justice Party.
Can you tell us whether there were any observers there on that morning, the 12th
Yes,
of October?
there were observers there that morning. Local and international observers.
And you had told us that before you had been in a tabulation room. Is this the room to which you returned?
No. On the 4th and the 5th, we were in a room that was to the north of Ashman's building.
Mm-hmm.
We were now instructed to enter a room at the southern end of Ashman's building.
Was this on the same floor?
Yes, it was on the ground floor.
And who gave those instructions to you?
The instructions came from the police. As we were going there, they directed us towards that entrance.
When you got to that room, did you see Mr. Clement Mingo?
Yes.
And did you have any interaction with Mr. Mingo?
Um,
Did he do anything?
hold a moment here. On the morning of the 12th, I think we started at the normal tabulation room. And it was the afternoon we went to the back end of the room.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah.
On the morning, did you see Mr. Mingo?
Yeah. And we went in through the normal entrance, and he allowed the observers in, the party agents in, had us all sit down before we got into the tabulation room, and he checked off the local and the foreign observers, and then he turned to the party agents and said that none of us were accredited to be there, but using his discretion as the returning officer, he would allow us to witness the tabulation of the count at that point.
And did he say anything else to you?
He also said that he would not tolerate any noise, any objections, anything. If we did, he would ask us to leave.
And at 4 minutes past 11, did Mr. Mingo say anything? Now, if you can't recall, remember your statement is in evidence. Will you like to refresh
Yes,
your
thank you.
memory?
That particular point.
What paragraph are you looking at?
32.
I referred him to 32 and 33.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Mingo,
Did Mr. Mingo at 11:04 say anything in relation to the statements of polls?
he told us that this was not going to be a verification process, but that he had tabulated all the statements of poll and put it on a spreadsheet, which we would go through from that point on.
Was any GCOM commissioner present at that point?
There was Mr. Sace Gunraj and Mr. Robson Ben as well.
Did either of them say anything?
Mr. Gunraj told Mr. Mingo that that was contrary to the Chief Justice's order, which she had given the day before, in which she had stated that verification of statement of poll by statement of poll should be done.
And what did Mr. Mingo say upon being told that by the commissioner?
Well, he got very flustered and he didn't know how to respond to that.
No,
So,
well, did he say anything at all?
I don't think so.
Okay. Did he remain in that room?
No, he got very flustered and then he left.
Did he return at all, or did he give a reason for leaving the room?
He says that he was going to get the statements of polls so that we could use those to do the verification process.
And did he subsequently return to that room?
He did.
When he returned, did he have the statements of polls?
No, he didn't.
Did he say anything in relation to the statements of polls or about the statements of polls which he had said he was going for?
No, he didn't say anything about them.
Did he add anything? Or did he say anything to the party agents there, including yourself?
I think he said that we would reconvene at about 1 in the afternoon of the 12th.
Okay. Did he say anything at that point about a spreadsheet?
That he was used his spreadsheet to, which he had tabulated already. He said he had tabulated the statements of poll already and had put them on a spreadsheet, which he would then use to inform us what the count actually was.
So when he returned without the statements of polls and was making it clear that he was using the spreadsheet, what did you do or say, if anything?
Well, I objected to the fact that we were not being allowed to verify the statements of poll.
And apart from yourself, did anyone else object?
I would go so far as to say all of the party agents who were present there, with the exception of the APNU party agents.
What did they do? Everybody objected
Yes,
except for APNU?
yes.
Now, you made reference earlier to the chairman of GCOM. Did you see the chairman of GCOM that afternoon?
Yes, I did.
And where were you when you saw her?
By this time we had moved to the southern entrance, the southern end of the building, and she came in and said that she was waiting on the written judgment from the Chief Justice's order of the previous day, and that when we get that, we would be able to continue.
Well, did you, as one of the party agents for your party, say anything to her?
Well, we accepted that, and that yes, it was a good decision, that let's wait until the written decision was with us so that she could explain to us, she being a retired judge, would be able to explain to us exactly what the Chief Justice's order, what it meant.
And what was the position, or what did the other party agents say?
They all agreed to it.
Are you familiar with the name Kit Nascimento?
Yes, ma'am.
And when the chairman of GCOM had come to speak to you all in that room, was Mr. Nascimento there?
Yes, he was.
And did Mr. Nascimento make any inquiry?
Yes, he well, he rather suggested that we adjourn until the afternoon when the Chief Justice's written order could be presented to us.
Okay. Was Mr. Nascimento an observer?
Yes, he was an observer for the private sector commission. Yeah.
Sure. Now, just around 4 p.m. or just before 4 p.m. that day, did you see Mr. Mingo?
Yes, we had returned back into the new tabulation room, and Mr. Mingo then proceeded to continue doing what he had tried to do in the morning, which was using the spreadsheet to do a tabulation rather than a verification.
Okay. Did he give you any word on the written judgment which you all were waiting for?
No, we never received that.
And having not received the written judgment, did you all remain there?
Well, Mr. Mingo then suggested that we
Would you like to refresh your memory?
yes.
It's been a long day, sir.
No, it's a lot of things happened that day too.
Yes.
No, I'm fine at this point. I'm fine at this point.
We are looking at 36 and 37.
Yeah. So,
No, don't read from the
No, no.
statement. It's in evidence. So, having told you that there was no word on the written judgment, right? What did you all do? Did you remain there? Did you leave Ashman's building?
we didn't want the verification process to continue. So,
One
Mr.
moment, Mr. Yearwood, you have to listen to what you.
Uh-huh.
Council is asking you, what did you all do? Did you remain there?
No, we left shortly after.
You left shortly after.
Sure. And I want to take you to another date and ask you if you recall it, or do you recall the 13th of March 2020?
Yes, the 13th, yeah.
Did you return to Ashman's building on that day?
Yes, we did.
And where in Ashman's building did you go to?
We went to the southern entrance where the new tabulation room had been set up.
And at about what? Sorry, I beg your pardon.
No, it's okay. So, your last account of what transpired at the Ashens building was on the 5th. 5th of March.
That was when Mr. Levan and the flash drive, yes.
The events with Mingo was what day?
On the 12th.
Oh, the 12th, sorry, I beg your pardon, yes. And so you're now about to tell us about what happened on the 13th.
Yes, sir.
Correct, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah?
So you got to Ashman's building at about 9 a.m.
Yes.
And can you tell us what you observed about this new room where you all had been placed?
It was a completely different room we were in, a much larger room. There was much more distance between the head table and the counting agents. There was the projector and the screen was still there, and the layout was it was just a bigger and to me it seemed a much more comfortable room.
Good.
Because there was a lot more space available in it.
Good. So, apart from yourself, did you see any other party agents there that morning?
Yes, all the parties had agents there for that morning.
And what about observers? Did you see
The
any
local and the foreign observers were there.
Did you see Mr. Mingo there that morning?
Yes, Mr. Mingo came in to do the verification.
And what happened when Mr. Mingo came in?
Well,
Was there an objection from anyone?
Yes, myself and the party agents wanted to restart the count from 4001, but Mr. Mingo and the APNU party agent wanted to start at 4041.
Now, why did you want to start at 4001?
Based on what my thought process was, if they were trying to do something with the flash drive, let's make sure that the numbers we had counted with the figures we had verified with the two ladies, that they were still the same as being recorded on the flash drive and on whatever it is. We just wanted to make sure that there were no changes in those figures.
Sure. Now, did Mr. Mingo or the APNU AFC representative give any indication as to why they wanted to start from 4041, ballot box 4041?
No, they just wanted to start from there.
And did the verification process restart?
It did.
And can you tell us what happened then?
As the verification process started at the 4041, very quickly I realized that the figures they were calling out were not the same figures that we had recorded on the SOPs. So I started to object to that.
Okay.
Sorry, just for my clarification, you wanted them to start at 4001.
Yes, sir.
That was the beginning. That
To,
would
to restart the entire process of the East Bank.
right. 4041 would have been something that you had already counted.
Yes, sir. There are 4 or 5 SOPs that Mr. Levan had done the night, which had numerous mistakes in it. We didn't trust the process anymore, so we wanted to start over.
Yeah, I understand that. 4041 though would have been something that you had already verified.
We would have verified up to 4040.
4040,
So the next one to start would have been 4041,
which had not yet been verified.
which had not yet been verified.
But I just want to be clear, because you said very soon after that you noticed the numbers weren't
Yes, sir.
computing.
Yes, sir.
They weren't matching what you had.
That's right.
So in other words, the trend seemed to be continuing where the SOPs were not matching up with what you had. The
Yes,
numbers
sir.
being read out. Okay. Thank you.
So when you realized that the differences in the numbers on your statement of polls and the numbers being called by Mr. Mingo, what did you do?
I started to object to it.
And were you the only person objecting?
No, I wasn't. Most of the other party agents objected to it as well.
At the time, was there any APNU AFC representative in the room?
Yes, there was.
And what was the reaction of those representatives?
There was reaction from one particular representative in that she became very vocal. She became verbally abusive.
Okay, so instead of describing it, can you just tell us what was said or done? So this representative, can you recall her name?
She threatened to.
What was her name?
Oh, okay. Her name was Carl Smith Joseph.
Okay. And she threatened someone?
Yes.
Who did she threaten?
2 people. She threatened Pauline Chase, who was the Guyana Bar Association's observer, and she threatened Mr. Kit Nascimento, the private sector observer. She also threatened the heads of the what we call the ABCE, American, British, Canadian, and European heads of mission in Guyanas. She also threatened them with physical harm.
Okay. So what did she threaten to do to Miss Chase, who was the accredited observer from the Guyana Bar Association?
She threatened to stamp her in the face.
And what did she threaten to do to Mr. Kit Nascimento, who was the observer from the private sector?
She threatened to spit in his face.
After these threats were made, did the ABCE heads of missions do anything?
Shortly after they got up and they left the building. Well, they left the room.
And what had Miss Smith Joseph said to these ABCE heads of missions?
She told them to get, I don't want to repeat the exact words, but basically she told him to get out of Guyana.
Okay.
I can put that into colorful language for you if you want, but
Well,
We want to hear what she said.
well, it depends on how colorful we want to get to the commissioner with all due respect.
You can offer us the first letter, I think, for your special signature.
oh, if you want to hear the first letter, you can say, well, get the F out of Guyana.
Thank you.
She was in a very nasty mood.
Okay. Now, were there police officers around when all of this was taking place?
Yes, there were. Quite a large number of them.
And did any police officer intervene to restrain or control Miss Carol Smith-Joseph?
No effort was made at all.
Did they speak to party agents?
Every time a party agent tried to object, the police tried to intervene to tell us to be quiet.
And when all of this was taking place, was there any GCOM member of staff in the room?
Yes, there were.
And did any GCOM staff member say or do anything?
Not that I can recall, no.
Now, later that day, did you see a court martial at Ashman's building?
Yes, I saw a gentleman, I presumed because of his uniform to be a court martial, enter the building. He went to Mr. Mingo and presented him with a document.
And after Mr. Mingo was handed this document, did he remain in the room?
He read the document and then he left the room.
And did any other GCOM employee remain in the room?
Yes, they remained, but the verification, I think the verification still continued for a while.
Can you remember the name of any GCOM employee who remained in the room?
Denise Bob Cummings was still there.
Sure. And when this occurred, did you stay in Ashman's? Did you stay at Ashman's?
Yes, I stayed.
And did other party representatives stay?
Yes, they stayed.
And did, at some point later that day, did you leave the building?
Yes, well, I left the building after a while.
And when you went outside of the building, did you make any observations as to who was outside?
Yes, when I left the building, I had to walk 1 block to get outside of the police barricades. And at the police barricades, I encountered members of the press who then started to ask me questions as to what was happening within the building.
And did you speak to them?
Yes, I spoke to the press.
And while you were speaking to members of the press, well, apart from the police officers, was there anyone else around?
Yes, at the corners away from the barricade, there were numerous APNU AFC supporters, and they were identifiable because they wore the APNU t-shirts. When they realized that I was speaking to the press, they all came and surrounded us to probably hear what was going on.
Okay, well, you can't tell us why they probably did what they did, but they came up and they surrounded you.
Yeah.
Did they do anything else?
After listening to what I was telling the press, they started to pelt me with plastic bottles.
And did the police protect you or
Not
provide you with protection?
Not that I can recall. The police did nothing to intervene as far as I remember.
Sure. Now, did you re-enter Ashman's building later that day?
Yes.
And is it correct to say that when you entered, numbers from ballot box 4718 were being called.
Yes.
Now, at this point, was the person calling from a statement of polls or a spreadsheet?
I think it was from the spreadsheet. No. I think by then they had gone back to the statements of poll.
Okay. And after that, did you see Mr. Mingo come into the room? Now,
During,
it's not a memory test, evidence is not
but-
a memory test. So if you want to read it, and it's a lot,
yeah,
so if you want to have a look at your statement.
if you don't mind.
Certainly. Paragraphs 44 to 45.
Thank you. Yeah, shortly. Okay.
Okay, so I had just asked you whether when you returned and you found that the clerk was now calling from the statements of polls, I asked you whether you had seen Mr. Mingo come back into the room.
Yeah, shortly after he came back into the room and he suspended the process, and he said that we would restart at 4 o'clock the next day at the GCOM's headquarters in High Street at 4 the next afternoon.
All right, so that means that you would have restarted at another building.
Yes.
So all this is still on the 13th.
Pardon?
These events are still on events of the 13th of March. So the restart on the afternoon 14th.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Would that be correct? Yes.
Yes, so,
Did he say where this other location would be?
Yes, that it would be the GCOM headquarters on High Street.
Thank you.
now the next day was the 14th of March 2020, correct? Or was it Friday the 13th?
This would be the Friday the 13th.
Okay.
So your next day would have been
The next day would be the 4th.
No.
No.
We were on the 12th. So when he stopped the tabulation, he was saying we would come back on the 13th.
13th. Okay.
Right, so earlier on, when you said that you had returned to Ashman's building on the 13th of March 2020, and you all had moved to the back room and so on, all of that was the 12th of March, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So on Friday, the 13th of March 2020, did you go to GCOM compound at High Street for 4 o'clock?
At High Street, yes. GCOM's headquarters at High Street, yes. 4 o'clock.
And when you arrived there, did you see any other party representatives?
Yes, a few of them walked in with me at the same time.
And can you remember in particular any of those
Not
who
really. no.
happened to be there at the time?
Not really, but I know party representatives were there.
Okay. And did you see any observers there?
Yes, local and international observers were there.
Did Mr. Mingo arrive?
Yes, Mr. Mingo arrived.
And did he speak to the persons gathered there?
He explained to us what the process would be, in that they would take a statement of poll, put it through a projector screen, which would then be projected onto what was supposed to be a screen, and once we all saw that, he would then show us what the statement of poll, show us the statement of poll. However, the
Okay,
screen...
just a second.
Okay.
Now, you are now at a different building. You are now at GCOM at High Street. Could you tell me or describe the surroundings you were in at that time?
Okay. The location was an open air garage, which was open on two sides, the western and the southern side. The eastern side was where the screen was, the supposed screen was to be. It turned out to be a white bed sheet. The projector was to my left, and the head table was now to the east of that room. So we were now east-west facing each other.
Okay.
The head table and the party representatives and the observers.
Well, you say the screen was a bed sheet. How was it affixed to something?
It was, I think it was just nailed or taped up to the wall.
Mr. Yearwood, you saw a piece of cloth. How would you differentiate between a piece of cloth and a bed sheet?
If I may, sir, the only piece of cloth I know that is that big would be a bed sheet.
So you call it a bed sheet because of its size.
Yes, sir.
It was large enough to cover a bed.
Yes, sir. A large bed.
I see.
A large bed.
Now, you said that when you got there, you had you noticed observers were also there. Was one of those observers the European Union delegate?
Yes, he was there.
And that afternoon, when after Mr. Mingo explained his process and so on, did that delegate do anything?
Just before the process actually started, he got up, the European Union observer got up, went to the projector to more or less, I think it was more or less to see how the process would function from that end. But he was chased away by Mr. Mingo.
When you say he was chased away, did Mr. Mingo say anything to him?
He told him to get back to the seat, that he was not allowed there. He wasn't allowed near the projector.
And did the observer comply?
Yes, he did.
Now, before you told us that you had seen police officers at Ashman's building during the verification process over the course of several days. On this particular day, at this new venue, did you see any police officers?
Yes, there were a large number of police officers present there.
Were they in uniform?
They were in uniform.
And were they armed?
Heavily armed, yes.
Now, at about 12 minutes to 5 that evening, the process began. Is that so?
Yeah.
With ballot box 4791?
Yes.
So, was this the same process with a GCOM staff member calling a figure and that figure was now being projected onto the bedsheet screen?
Yes.
From where you were you able to see what was being projected on that screen?
Not very clearly, no.
And was there any difference in terms of how the numbers were being called out as opposed to how they were being called out previously?
There was no difference because the figures that we were hearing were not necessarily the figures that we had recorded.
Okay. Was the person calling out the numbers calling them out more quickly or more slowly or at the same pace as before?
Much faster.
Mr. Yearwood, you said they were not necessarily. I mean, what do you mean?
Can you read the context of the sentence, sir?
No. And counsel asked you whether the person who was calling out the numbers was calling them out so that audibly enough so you could have heard. Then you said you were not hearing them, they were not necessarily consistent with what you had.
Yes, sir.
Is that they were not consistent with what you had? Why you said necessarily consistent?
Well, Commissioner, perhaps I could assist?
Yes.
Yes. Now, you have heard the chairman bring your attention to something you said. They were not necessarily the same. Now, from what you told us afterwards, you were having difficulty seeing the screen, correct? So is this why you are saying that the numbers were not necessarily the same, because you couldn't see on the screen what the number was?
Apart from that, there were the numbers for the smaller political parties were correct, but the differences came with the numbers for the two big political parties. There were no changes to what ANUG and LJP and CG had won. The changes came from the two big political parties.
So what you're saying, when the numbers for the two big political parties came on the sheet, right, they were different from yours.
Yes, sir.
That's what you saw, right? So they were not necessarily different, but they were different.
Yeah.
So that, yes.
Now, when this started happening, did you remain there?
After a very short while, I realized that the process was going to be the same, what I considered a nonsensical process.
And did you say or do anything?
I packed up to leave, and I told Mr. Mingo in no uncertain terms that if Guyana erupted into violence, he would be the sole cause of it because of what he was doing here.
And did Mr. Mingo reply?
No, he didn't.
Did anyone there do or say anything when you made that statement?
At that point, no. But when I was leaving, as I got up, I had packed up, and as I was leaving to walk out, Miss Carol Joseph rushed at me from where she was sitting, and she was threatening me.
Now, when you say Miss Carol Joseph, I think you had referred to her earlier, but
Yeah, she's the APNU. She was the APNU AFC counting agent representative at this point.
sure. Yes, and how did that play out? How did that incident play out? She rushed at you.
Yeah, when she rushed at me, I remembered everything that she had done and threatened to do to other parties.
What did you do?
I defended myself and I pushed her away.
Okay. And after you pushed her away, what happened to you?
I was arrested. I was immediately surrounded by 5 or 6 heavily armed police and escorted out and taken to Brickdown police station.
Yearwood, Mr. Yearwood, why did you push her?
She was rushing into me.
Or she was coming towards you?
She was sitting maybe 3 or 4 rows back. I was walking down the exit. So she left where she was,
And was coming towards
rushing to me, not walking gently, rushing
running
to me.
towards you, yes.
And she says that I'm going to get you.
Okay, it's important.
So I went into
It
my
was at that
defensive mode.
stage. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
But I'm gonna get you, she's running to you, maybe she just wanted to give you a hug knowing that you were leaving.
Maybe your approach should have been different for that.
I
then.
see, okay.
But bearing in mind what she had done earlier, I didn't want a hug from her.
And at this, who is Mr. Timothy Jonas?
He was and still is the chairman of ANUG United Political Party, which I was the representative of, and he is also a lawyer.
Okay, so you saw him at the station later that day.
I called him to meet me there, yes. I told him what transpired, and he came as my lawyer.
All right. And were you charged or released?
I was released after I showed the police in charge the video of what took place. I was released.
Okay. Now, I'm now rushing you on to another day. Do you recall 16th of March 2020?
Yes.
And were you told anything in relation to containers containing ballots on that day?
Yes. I was told that GCOM would be removing the containers containing the ballots, the ballot boxes, from their head office to the Arthur Chung Conference Center.
And what did you do? Did you go there?
I went to the Arthur Chung Center.
And apart from yourself, was any party representative there?
Yes, lots of party representatives and local observers were there.
Did you see any GCOM employee enter the ACC building, the Arthur Chung Convention Center building?
Yes, I saw the deputy CEO, Roxanne Myers. She went into the building.
Sure. And at about 6:10, did a vehicle arrive at that building?
Yes, a Ministry of Health vector control vehicle drove into the compound at that point in time.
And did you speak to the driver?
Yes, and I was informed that they had instructions to fumigate the building.
Did he say who the instructions had come from?
I think it was from someone in GCOM. I can't really remember.
Okay. And after this, did you see whether personnel from Ministry of Health Vector Control entered the Arthur Chung Convention Center building?
Yes, they entered, and I presume they started to fumigate.
Did you see Ms. Myers again?
Yes, I saw her when she came out of the building.
And did you speak to her?
Yes, I spoke to her and I asked her whether what we had been told was true, that the recount would start the next day, that the counting would restart the next day. And she said, as far as she knows, no, because the building was being fumigated.
Did she say anything about when the recount would start or the count?
No, but she did say that there had been no agreement reached between the CARICOM representatives and GCOM as to what was going to take place from here on in.
Now, you have told us that at the other places where GCOM had operated before, that there had been police officers. Did you observe whether there were police officers at the Arthur Chung Convention Center building?
Yes, they were.
And can you describe how they were dressed or what they were carrying?
Initially, there were only a few, normal, doing security, securing the premises and whatever. But shortly after, a large amount arrived in riot gear with weapons and riot squad with the shields, helmets and everything there. They formed a line and they said that we have to leave the compound. They proceeded to advance towards us very slowly, and step by step we were forced eventually out of the building, out of the compound.
Okay. Are you familiar with the name, are you familiar with a police officer called Mr. R. Stanley?
Yes, I am.
And did Mr. Stanley speak to you that evening?
He didn't speak to me directly, but he spoke to us as a crowd, and he said that he had instructions to clear the compound.
And when you say he spoke to us as a crowd, would that have included party representatives and observers?
Yes.
Did he say from whom he had got these instructions?
No, he didn't.
Now, after you all were made to retreat away from the building, did any police officer speak to you?
When we were outside of the premises of the Arthur Chung building, basically on the public road, Mr. Stanley came to us and we asked him.
You asked him?
I didn't ask him, but I heard.
Did you hear any?
I heard it being said that we disagreed with having the containers left without party representatives being there to ensure that nothing was done to them, to the containers.
Who said that?
One of the party agents.
Okay. So one of the party agents expressed that concern
Yes.
to Officer Stanley.
Yes.
And what was the outcome of that?
He then thought for a while, and then he told us that he will allow one party representative to be there to ensure that everything would be okay. But he didn't want a large crowd in there.
Okay. And did that take place?
After the first set of party agents went in, I left, yes.
Now, sir, you have given us several accounts of, how should I put it, of somewhat contentious developments which occurred during the period of time you've spoken about. Do you agree?
Yes, I do.
And did you make a recording of any of those episodes?
Yes, I did. Very early on my entrance into the Ashman's building on the 4th of March, I noticed one of the local observers with a notepad and a pen making notes of whatever. So I thought to myself, this is a great idea. So I started to make my own records as to what was transpiring and at what times
Right.
things were happening. So I did that. As much as possible, I took photographs of what was on the screen when it became disputed. At the Ashman's building, there was a recording of that. At the Chung Center, I took photographs and videos of the police advancing towards
Okay.
us.
Now, did you make any audio recordings?
Yes, I have some audio recordings of the new tabulation room in the Ashman's building.
Okay. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I am respectfully asking for leave for a recording to be played. So I'm going to ask you to listen carefully to what is going to be played.
Each statement please. Therefore,
Mr. Mango will have to sit down with the program.
please not interrupt me. But sir, if you are saying things that don't comply with the act, please do not interrupt me, sir. If in your opinion, each statement please. Therefore,
Mr. Mango will have to sit down with the program.
Please not interrupt. Each statement is told, please. Therefore,
Mr. Mingo, you have to stand for the program.
please not interrupt. But sir, if you're saying things that don't comply with the act, let him finish. Please do not interrupt me, sir. If in your opinion that it's not compliant with the law, then you can take other recourses. I will stand my ground and I will read from each statement is told, please. Therefore,
Mr. Mingo, you have to stand for the program.
please not interrupt. But sir, if you're saying things that don't comply with the act, let him finish. Do not interrupt me, sir. If in your opinion that it's not compliant with the law, then you can take other recourses. I will stand my ground and I will read from broadsheet.
It's interesting, sir, that just now you were willing to bring it to the time, and then suddenly you spoke to the CEO and you're standing your ground. The thing is, sir, you were sitting in a court of lawyers where the Chief Justice was very pleased. And right now,
Due to circumstances beyond my control, I can allow the laptop to be placed before the commissioners for it to be heard, but the general public will not hear it. Will the commissioners be able to hear it?
Just plug it in and turn on one of the microphones.
Sure. Well, if that is possible, as they say in Star Wars, make it so.
each statement of faith. Therefore,
Mr. Mingo will have to stand for the program.
please not interrupt me. But sir, if you're saying things that don't comply with the act, let him finish. Interrupt me, sir. If in your opinion that it's not compliant with the law, then you can take other recourses. I will stand my ground and I will read from broadsheet.
It's interesting, sir, that just now you were willing to bring the SOP, which couldn't find you, and then suddenly you spoke to the CEO and you're standing your ground. The thing is, sir, you were sitting in a court of lawyers where the Chief Justice is very clear. And right now, you're going against the Chief Justice's order. Are you aware?
No, I am
Are you
not.
aware of the consequences of going against the court order?
I am not going against the court order.
Mr. Mingo,
That these are my questions for Mr. Yearwood.
Thank you.